the War on Errorism by NOFX is the penultimate one on my list. So for me,
What does that mean?
it's
Is that means your most important one?
second to last.
Okay, so is that what was it? What was the word you used?
Penultimate.
What does that mean?
It's like second to last. So like
Really?
the episode of a TV series before the series finale or season finale. Oh, the penultimate.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Man, I'm learning shit today.
Yeah, vocabulary lessons here. Okay, so again, and actually from a sentimentality standpoint, the album that I like the most is probably on your list. But of the ones on my list, this is the one that I've probably listened to 100 bazillion times. It didn't get me into NoFX, and that like I was aware of Pump Up the Volume. I had a few of the fat comps. I think I even had the one that came out in 02, the 45 or 46 songs that weren't good enough for the other albums. But I heard this thing and it was like I finally got it because like I knew of NoFX, but I hadn't really experienced it. And then it just kind of it was out there. It had a cool cover. It had and I was like, okay, I want to check that out. These guys always seem pretty cool. And I still remember very distinctly in my crappy truck that I had, my first vehicle I ever owned, and I was hooked. I was hooked. The political songs a little bit, and I like political music a lot. Man, I just mentioned Anti-Flag.
Yeah.
But for me, it was the jokey songs on that album that really like She's Nubs. I just thought it was great. We Got Too Jealous Again, Whoops I OD'd, all of those, along with the political ones as well. I love that album. I listened to it a million times. Probably bought it twice in its run of CDs because it got messed up a couple of times. And to me, that was a good like introduction to what NoFX was, even though it's not actually representative. I think of like their 90s stuff. I think the 90s stuff is much better than this album was, but this album was just so huge for me. And again, like thinking about bands like Anti-Flag and Rancid that I was super into at the time, they've always felt though probably like too smart for me, especially then, or too like
who
like the Anti-Flags and the Rancids. Like I feel like those were like more intellectual. People like I was strive to be, but I wasn't quite at that level. Where when I'm hearing like Fat Mike do his songs, I'm like, okay, that's kind of where 15-year-old me is at. Like that. This
Except
guy's
that they're like low key genius though.
No, they are, but that's the thing about it. They can appeal. Like it's funny. I think of the diversity, like in my comment section when I do NoFX videos, of how split it is and who watches those videos and who comments on those videos, and because they touch a lot of different generations and they are different things to different people, and again, kind of depending on the era that you got it, because like there's the older guys, the guys that are probably like a little older than you that like hate NoFX, and they have a passionate and have since the beginning, right? Like it's funny that they were like the crappy 90s band that they were crappy and didn't blow up. Like they had both things going for them. They stayed independent, did well, but again, didn't blow up, didn't do interviews. And then the 2000s, and that was kind of the thesis of my stream last night, the 2000s started the Fat Mike celebrity era, but it hadn't quite worn itself out yet the way it did a couple of years ago in this time. Like it was still fun. And again,
they weren't cool till they had a comeback.
I didn't have a Sid Vicious or a Darby Crash or one of those guys to be like my embarrassing punk rock guy that was out there. Fat Mike was that guy for me.
Dude, yeah.
I mean that with all affection to the guy. All affection. But at the same time, what you were saying about Laura Jane Grace, I feel like Fat Mike to a lesser extent has kind of had that for me later in life too. Because like everyone clowns on Fat Mike because he's like this 50-year-old guy with like blue hair and stuff that's still saying ridiculous stuff. And I'm like, man, I just like to have, I wish I had that kind of confidence in general. I don't. And it's easy to have the confidence that he has when he's in the position that he is, certainly. But like he, to me, is very much normalized punk rock as an adult. And it's funny because like the most immature guy theoretically in the genre is the one that like getting back into punk rock wouldn't have happened for me had it not been for just like listening to NoFX. Like I didn't like Double Album, but I like their more recent stuff, which is all personal stuff more. So it's more of the destruction of Mike. And I don't relate to it, but I just really like all that stuff.
So I actually am going to do a review on Double Album. I didn't realize it wasn't a double album because I wasn't paying enough attention to it.
It's actually very short. Yeah. You get through it pretty quick.
So, man, it's wild. This video has been so much fun for me because I am finally seeing the differences in you and I, because for the last couple of weeks I've been thinking like, okay, are we going to have too much in common?
Yeah.
And I was like, man, wait, there's got to be stuff we disagree on that we can talk civilly about. And this is another one, dude. This is the album where I stopped listening to NoFX. I was like, this shit is trash. I didn't like it. I still don't like it. I think it's got like a few songs that are good. I listened to it in its entirety today, and I just like the Separation of Church and Skate is a classic song. It is what it is. That song, and I think that's what bothers me is that this album opens up with one of my favorite songs of theirs, period, hands down, and then it just goes for me. I mean, so I'm saying that kind of in jest, but yeah, man, like I think NOFX is one of those bands that's like one of my favorite bands, but I can never put them on like a S tier thing, dude, because they don't have a single album for me, like not one that has no skips. Not a single album does NOFX have that has no skips. Every album that they've got has skips, and that bothers me because I love this freaking band. But like, where I was just looking at their discography, and I remember Pumpkin Drublick. I remember it coming out. I remember Heavy Petting Zoo. I remember So Long and Thanks for All the Shoes. And my personal favorite is Pump Up the Volume, which is another reason why I don't like War on Errorism, is because my favorite is Pump Up the Volume. So I was expecting like more of that. And it went from like, well, Pump Up the Volume to War on Errorism. It went, and they turned into like this political band all of a sudden. And I was like, God damn it, why are you doing this to me? Like, and it's funny because I think like my second or third favorite album of theirs is probably Wolves in Wolves Clothing. Like they went back to the Pump Up the Volume, and I was like, oh, I like this.
I like that album better than Errorism. If we were ranking,
that album slaps, bro. It is so good. Yeah, man. I mean, NOFX is awesome, dude, and I like that they do political stuff. In my older age, I'm appreciating it more because I think Fat Mike stood up for a lot of stuff, and he stood up in front of a lot of people and did a lot of things that got him shit thrown at him and booze and people say what they want, man. I die on the NOFX hill, dude. Like, if you want to fight about NOFX, we can fight about it. Like, whether I like their song their album beginning to end or not is irrelevant. They're a band that I saw them with Rancid. They did our split with Rancid. NOFX is basically the Rancid B-side for me. So you got some shit to say about NOFX. Let's go ahead and argue about it. Like, it is what it is. How do you feel about the tracks, though? Like, did you feel the same way I did, that it starts off on such a high note? Because you seem to really love this album. And
I did. So again, I didn't have, when I heard it too, I didn't have the context of like their entire career either.
Oh, that matters. A lot.
It totally did. It totally did. Like, again, I didn't know, like, older albums are pretty funny and all this comedic stuff, but I really like the and then this is probably what turned off a lot of people, is like, this is when they realized, and they started up with Valium with theme from a NOFX album, where they just realized, hey, and they're only in their early 30s, they're younger than I am now, but they realized we're older than everyone else. Like, we're kind of in the OG, we're just gonna start embracing it. And they've got songs like Anarchy Camp, and then they've got I'm trying to think of what it's like. Mattersville, which is like the story of a punk rock old folks home. And I love, like, he puts the line that at the corner of my cul-de-sac, Davey Havoc's house is painted black, and
that's awesome.
Fletcher's going to work security, and it's just it's very self-referential, I think. And so for me at the time, not knowing a ton, there was a lot that kind of got unveiled there. Even like the song Too Jealous Again's, I learned about like 3 or 4 different bands just from the names of the albums that he bought. When me and my friends are hearing it, and we didn't know what the hell he was talking about, when he's just saying these random words that are funny, Dude, that we didn't really realize are albums.
Hindsight is a funny thing, man. Going to, like, hindsight as in like hearing that, not realizing what it is, listening to it 20 years later going, oh, he meant this, and this. Oh, it's all stuff that I'm familiar with. Like, the one thing I will say is that I was listening to that album today, trying to get like prepared for tonight, and I sent my friend a message, and I was like, bro, is Licorice Pizza a real place? Because that movie came out called Licorice Pizza. And he's like, oh, yeah, I think it's like a record store, or it used to be. And I was like, yeah, dude, I just heard it referenced in a NOFX song. And he's like, really? He's like a movie guy. So he's like, what?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, bro, like, I guess it's a real, I didn't know that. And like,
Okie Dogs, I learned what Okie Dogs was from that album.
Bro, I think I'm being a little harsh on it. But when it came out, it's definitely when I was like, I'm out. Like, I don't like this anymore. Dude, I'm weird though, bro. Like, I can love something, and then when something that comes out by that something, or when something that is brought to the table from whatever it is that I love isn't of my taste anymore, I will just hold on to what I like and then just go, I'm good. I like this. I'll just keep this.
Mm.
I'm, excuse me, I'm very habitual and I hate change. So like when bands change, like this is another reason why I'm so surprised I love so much Rancid music because their sound has changed quite a bit.
Mhm. Yeah,
I'm doing
absolutely.
another, do what?
I said no because it's kind of all over the place. There's
Yeah,
some,
I'm doing I'm doing a podcast tomorrow with another local musician, and we're talking about Rancid again, but we're talking about the progression of their sound. And
Mhm.
they're a band that I would hope to maybe work with one of these days as far as with my label. So this kid's young and he's really cool. He's a great bass player, man. But oh, dude, the production on War and Errorism is fantastic. The
Mhm.
songwriting, at least in hindsight, is much more enjoyable than it was when I was in my 20s.
Mhm.
Fat Mike's a very underrated bass player.
He is, and it's funny because he'll always tell you, every punk musician will tell you they don't know how to play bass or they don't know how to play their instruments. You actually can fill it in Fat Mike's, and not that he doesn't know how to play, but that he is clearly self-taught, that he thinks he's playing guitar sometimes, and then he's doing these, and how he always says he didn't know. Like he didn't know the Ramones were doing down picking. He kind of conceptualized the opposite of that and started everything he did on the upstroke. But he realized I can get a lot faster when I do that, and he was like, I don't need to do these downstrokes all the time. And there's something
Huh.
charming about his bass playing because I think as a bass player and the primary songwriter, he clearly writes a lot of songs on bass. So there's a lot
Hmm.
of the melody of those songs that are carried through that really like I've seen a band before, like when the guitar goes out and it's like, hey, let's do one song quick on bass while we're changing the string or something.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think I could listen to like 4 or 5 NOFX songs that are just like
Oh,
Fat Mike bass parts,
for sure.
interspersed with the drums and his singing. And not to take away from Eric Melvin and Hefek because they're really fun guitarists, but yeah, that he brings something I think very unique to the band in that way. And then with the off timing stuff, which they weren't the first ones to do it, but they really I think helped popularize that as a combo with the syncopated stuff
What
and
does
all
that
that.
mean?
That like the do you understand how to count rhythm and music? And I'm not a musician either, but
Bro, I'm not smart, so
so
well,
basically,
that's not true. I'm not educated at anything, but I'm fairly intelligent. So explain it to me, please.
so the way the way I basically understand it is it's something you do with rhythm that actually is done in metal a lot and funk, where instead of
Okay.
you hit the beats, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and you skip the even numbers, and that
Okay.
and so I can't really do it, but it's like 1 and 3 and 4. But if you kind of do it fast, it's that NOFX skate punk kind of
Oh,
thing.
triplets.
Yes, yes, yes,
Okay.
this, yeah.
Okay, there's called something different for me. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, I know what that
but
is.
yeah, and I think like they use that a ton, and I've heard people criticize that, like, okay, and that kind of
Oh,
becomes
that does sound like a guitar. Okay, I got you
the
now.
fat sound, yeah,
I just understood a whole bunch of
yeah,
stuff you just said. Okay, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
which I think at the core of it, which a lot of skate punk actually originates from metal bands that turned to punk rock, whereas in the early '80s the punk rock bands went metal, and then in the early '90s you have a lot of these like Lagwagon started out as more like a metal like inspired band that went
Yeah.
punk rock, but a lot of that riffage I think has the same sort of like bass to
Dude,
it.
people can say whatever they want, but metal and punk are so closely
Mhm.
they're like this, man. At least thrash, anyways. Like where
Yeah.
metal started and where punk
Well,
started is so closely. Like in that documentary, dude, Kirk Hammett was in like half of it.
mhm, yeah, and it's
Like,
funny, and it was Larry Livermore who was like, he's like, they were saying, hey, Metallica lives over there, and it's like, oh, hey, who's Metallica? And it's funny because I never until I seen there was a podcast that Lars and Lars did together. I never actually put it together
wait,
that
what?
yeah, there's a I think Lars Ulrich had his I don't know if it still exists, but it was like a exclusive to like Apple. It was like his podcast where he would basically interview like the other members of the band. But there's an episode he did. I've never listened to the full thing because it was like behind a paywall and I couldn't afford it
With
at the time.
Lars
But
Fredrickson?
Lars Frederick said, yeah. So Lars Ulrich interviews
Whoa.
and so he put something on Instagram like a couple of East Bay boys or something like that. And then it never it dawned on me in that one moment. I was like, wait a minute, these guys that are basically the same age that grew up in basically the same part of the country and they have all the common threads. Obviously thrash went one way and punk went a different way, but I think there's a link there. They're all inspired by Misfits and Motorhead and all that stuff, that they all
Yeah.
have the same influences. It's just how it was expressed, I think,
Yeah.
was just different.
I just had like a revelation, man. I was thinking, like, man, it's super cool that Metallica knows who Rancid is. Like, why wouldn't they?
Right.
And then like if I think about it, my very first show was in fact Rancid and Metallica.
The Lollapalooza, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And they
Oh man.
and they were both of those bands on that tour were geeked out to be playing with the Ramones, which is funny.
Yeah, dude.
That's the other common thread is all those bands love the Ramones. Too much
Uh-huh.
like